Alright, hear me out. And maybe this is just me. But I just thought about it because I was driving on my way home. I'd really be ready to cut a nigga off over the smallest shit. Like the littlest thing, I'd just be turned off. Like, ugh.
And now the details on the investigation into the death of Ashlee Robinson. Her family is demanding answers after the influencer from South Jersey was found dead during a trip to Africa where she had just been engaged.
We believe that they were in love. We believe that their relationship was genuine.
Ashlee's mother says she never would have expected that less than a week later, her daughter would be dead. On April 8th, she says Ashlee called saying she and her fiance got into an argument and were moved to separate rooms.
He told me that Ashlee did something to herself and that she was being taken to the hospital. I said, what happened when? And he told me it had been 11 hours prior.
Chapter 31. Exactly where I need to be. Those were the last words Ashlee Robinson shared with her followers, a 31-year-old entrepreneur at the height of her success, celebrating a surprise safari proposal in Zanzibar. But within days, the dream was over. The official report claims her passing was a personal choice. Her family, backed by a second medical analysis citing external pressure and oxygen deprivation, claims it was a cover-up. Between the yes and the tragedy lies an 11-hour silence that no one can explain. Was this a woman in despair, or is the truth being buried in the sands? Stick with us as we untangle the timeline the authorities won't. If you're here for deep research and the pursuit of accountability, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You're watching The Dark Minds, where we look past the mask to find the truth. If this is a dream, no one wake me up. That was the caption that stopped the scroll for millions on April 3rd. It accompanied a video that felt like the pinnacle of a life well lived. Ashlee Robinson, known to the digital world as Ashlee Jenae, standing in the golden light of the Siha district. She's at the Serval Wildlife Resort, a place where the wild meets the ultra-wealthy, and she looks every bit the part of the modern success story she had spent a decade building. Beside her is Joe McCann. To the financial world, he's the high-stakes founder of an investment firm, a man used to navigating volatile currents. But here, in the shadow of Mount Kilimanjaro, he's playing a different role, the partner about to change her life forever. The visuals from that day are almost hauntingly perfect. The clips show Ashlee feeding giraffes, her laughter silent but visible, her movements graceful. It was her 31st birthday, a milestone she called her Chapter 31. She was a woman at her absolute peak, an entrepreneur who had mastered the soft life aesthetic. Then came the moment that would define the week. Under the vast Tanzanian sky, McCann dropped to one knee. The ring, a massive, sparkling testament to their shared future, caught the East African sun. Ashlee's reaction was pure joy. In the world of social media, this was a coronation. But in our space, we often talk about the disparity between the digital footprint and the private reality. Here, the aesthetic is flawless. The lighting is professional. There is no hint of the physical dispute that hotel staff would later testify to. There is no shadow of the unexplained marks that would soon become the center of a global investigation. At 4 p.m. on April 3rd, Ashlee Robinson was a bride-to-be with a world of plans. She was a daughter who had just spoken to her mother with excitement. This is the version of the story the world was meant to see. The golden hour that made the darkness that followed feel fundamentally impossible. Remember, the more perfect the mask, the more devastating it is when it finally slips. While the world was hitting like on her dream, the countdown to an 11-hour silence had already begun. The golden light had long faded by the time they reached the northern tip of Zanzibar, replaced by the deep blues of the Indian Ocean. We are now at the Zuri Zanzibar resort, a place designed for seclusion. But on April 8th, the atmosphere inside one of these private villas turned heavy. The tropical air felt like a pressure cooker. According to the reports from the local precinct, the paradise was shattered by what hotel staff described as a significant altercation. This wasn't a minor disagreement. This was a fracture. The regional authorities would later confirm that the dispute reached such a pitch that the resort security felt compelled to intervene. In a place where the customer is always right, the staff took the extraordinary step of relocating the couple into separate quarters to de-escalate the situation. Imagine the scene: the polished wood floors, the white linen curtains fluttering in the sea air, and the sharp, jagged contrast of an argument so intense it required outside intervention. We have to ask ourselves, what was said in those rooms? What shift occurred in the 5 days since that diamond ring was placed on her finger? But the most telling piece of evidence from this chapter doesn't come from the police. It comes from a phone call. Amidst the chaos of the fracture, Ashlee reached for her lifeline. She called her mother, Yolanda Denise Endres. This wasn't a call of despair or a cry for help from someone who had given up. According to Yolanda, Ashlee spoke about the argument with the clarity of a woman standing her ground. She was processing the conflict, communicating the reality of her situation, and reaching out to the one person who knew her soul better than anyone. This call is the forensic pivot of the entire night. It establishes Ashlee's state of mind not as a woman withdrawing from the world, but as one actively engaging with it, seeking counsel, and planning her next move. In the world of criminal psychology, we look for the moment a person checks out. But on the night of April 8th, Ashlee Robinson was checked in. She was fighting for her dignity, she was talking to her mother, and she was waiting for the sun to rise on a new day. What she didn't know was that while she was being separated for her safety, the walls of that luxury villa were closing in. The fracture had occurred, the staff had retreated, and as the resort fell silent, the most mysterious hours of her life were about to begin. The major blowout was over, but the silence that followed would be deafening. In criminal psychology, the hour of communication is vital. It's that window where memory is sharpest, where reactions are rawest, and where the truth is hardest to hide. But in the private villa of Zuri Zanzibar on the morning of April 9th, that hour didn't bring clarity. It brought a void. According to the timeline provided to authorities, Joe McCann reportedly made a discovery that would stop time. At 9:30 a.m., while the rest of the resort was waking up to the sounds of the Indian Ocean, the man who had just proposed 5 days earlier found Ashlee unresponsive. This is the moment where every protocol of human nature dictates a frantic, immediate chain of events. A call for help, a rush of medical staff, and a desperate reach for the family back home. But as we watch the digital clock on the screen begin to tick, notice how the seconds turn into minutes, and the minutes into agonizing hours. 10 a.m. passes. Noon comes and goes. The tropical sun reaches its peak over Zanzibar and begins its slow descent toward the horizon. 2 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours. In the United States, Ashlee's family is going about their day, unaware that their world has already ended. They are waiting for a text, a photo, a check-in from the woman who never stayed silent for long, but the phone remains dark. In Zanzibar, the investigation is supposedly beginning, the villa is being secured, and yet the one person who shared Ashlee's life, the man who found her, remains silent to her kin. It isn't until nearly 11 hours later, as the evening shadows stretch across the resort, that the silence is finally broken. But the voice on the other end of the line isn't Joe McCann's. It isn't the voice of the man she was supposed to marry. Instead, it's a hotel receptionist, a stranger, a voice representing a corporation, not a heart. Why? That is the question that haunts every researcher looking at this case. Why did it take 11 hours to bridge the gap between a luxury villa in Tanzania and a family home in America? Why, in the age of instant global communication, did the father of her future and the founder of Asymmetric Financial, a man who lives and breathes data and speed, allow a half day to vanish into the ether? When you look at this through the lens of behavioral analysis, that 11-hour window isn't just a delay, it's a canyon. It's a space where narratives can be formed, where scenes can be processed, and where the golden hour is systematically dismantled. For Yolanda and the rest of the family, that silence was the first sign that the story they were being told wasn't the whole truth. It was the moment the tragedy shifted from a personal loss to a systemic mystery. As we hit the 11-hour mark on our clock, the call finally connects. The news is delivered with the clinical detachment of hospitality staff. And in that moment, the fight for Ashlee Jenae didn't end. It truly began. Because while the clock was ticking in silence, the truth was already being contested. The scene shifts from the luxury of the resort to the sterile, cold reality of a clinical exam room. According to the regional authorities, the ruling was immediate, a self-initiated departure. The official account suggests a sudden internal shift, a narrative of a woman who, after a significant dispute, chose to conclude her journey during her Chapter 31. But the medical documentation obtained by the family presents a different reality. When the case was reviewed by a second medical facility, the findings moved from a personal decision to a physical one. This report identifies the cause as respiratory failure due to external factors and airway restriction. In forensic research, we look at the mechanics of how oxygen is denied to the system. While one account focuses on a witness statement, this second finding points to an external physical pressure as the primary mechanism. There is also the matter of the unidentified mark found during the independent review. To her family, this is a signature of something the local process may have overlooked. How do two clinical reviews of the same evidence reach such opposing conclusions? This is no longer a personal loss. It is a conflict of documentation, a battle between a closed file and a search for physiological truth. The distance between the coast of East Africa and the family home in Delaware is nearly 8,000 miles, but by April 12th, that distance had collapsed under the weight of a mother's resolve. As we analyze the high-contrast digital record, Savannah Britt, Ashlee's close associate, emerges as a key advocate for transparency. Her outreach isn't just a tribute, it is a challenge to the existing narrative. This is where the theme of institutional friction takes root. The family is now seeking intervention from higher diplomatic channels, requesting that the national mission oversee the process. They are declining to accept the theory of a self-initiated conclusion, a theory that contradicts the behavioral data of the woman they knew. In psychology, we look for indicators of withdrawal, but Ashlee showed the opposite. She was a professional who had just refreshed her digital portfolio, managed her brand with precision, and spent her final hours documenting her long-term objectives. The logic is simple. How does a person move from a peak moment of celebration to a sudden, unexplained conclusion in a matter of days? The family is defending the integrity of a woman whose final records were centered entirely on her future. As we look out over the dark coastline, the luxury of the scenery fades into the background. We are left with a question of international significance. Is this a case of a personal decision or a failure in the protection of a citizen abroad? The family isn't seeking sentiment. They are seeking precision. They are requesting a secondary independent professional review and a transparent audit of that 11-hour gap in communication. They are fighting for a factual record that remains consistent, regardless of which official is reviewing the data. This is the reality of the digital age. When the public image of a dream trip is replaced by a complex inquiry, all that remains is the data. And for Ashlee Robinson, that data is being protected by those who refuse to let her story be summarized by a simple explanation. Was the half-day delay a logistical oversight, or was it a window of time that altered the narrative? Follow Dark Minds for the next investigative update as we monitor the fight for truth.